CY Western Company is located in Bushnell, Florida. It's a great place for boots, clothing, gifts, and accessories for the whole family. They are a family-owned and operated business that opened in 2008. They offer free gift bagging and layaway services, and also a 10% discount for 4-H and FFA members with proof of membership. Be sure to like them on Facebook, where customers can stay updated on sales and giveaways. You can find them next to Lowry's True Value Hardware in Bushnell, open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6, and Saturdays, 9 to 5. Be sure to check out CY Western Company. All right, welcome back to another edition of the Goblay Show. I'm your host, Billy Goble, and today's guest is a special guest. Is a former Florida Gator, played tight end during the championship years. And without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Tate Casey. Tate, welcome to the show, buddy.
I appreciate it, brother. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in there.
How's life?
It's been good. Just got off of vacation last week and back in the swing of things. So, just full-fledged over here.
What for all the Gator fans that might be watching this later on, what are you up to these days if they have not taken the time to track you down and figure out what you're doing on Wikipedia or whatever?
Yeah, man, I'm in sales for day to day, and then obviously do Gator radio on the side during the fall, and a little bit of media here and there, some podcast stuff, not my own, but more so podcast appearances and some sports media.
Awesome. You should definitely check into doing your own thing. That I think every player that experienced something like an ultimate goal, like winning a national championship or a Super Bowl or whatever have you, I think they should have their own podcast. And they don't have to put a podcast out every week, but yeah. I think they have all these incredible stories and scenarios that they can explain and what happened, what they went through the process. So I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. And, I've had people tell me, I had one that I was doing for a while years ago, and it just got a little bit consuming with time and kids and all the other things. And,
yeah,
it's funny. I'm actually doing a garage project right now with a golf simulator / media space. And I'm trying to preemptively design it to accommodate if I ever did want to do podcasting or something like that at least I implement that into the space. So I've got a couple things I'm kicking around upstairs in my head, and I don't know if it'll come to fruition anytime soon, but it's definitely something I'm pondering.
Yeah, that's awesome to have your own golf simulator. Then you ain't got to worry about going anywhere. You can play inside and.
Well, when you're as bad as I am, you got to find something. You got to find something to do to practice. So no, it's been good. That just got kicked off this week, and being back from vacation at home by myself with my thoughts on that, it's kind of been nice where I don't have kids yelling every 5 seconds or getting in fights downstairs. So it's been good.
You never knew you were going to be a referee at any point in your life, did
That's
you?
Exactly right. Yeah, it's almost like being back in the locker room. Just breaking it up.
So what I like to do is with any guests I have on is I like to go back, because we always have to have a starting point. And I'm going to ask you, hey, where is Tate Casey from originally? If for people that don't know him very well, or they do remember him, but they have no idea how he got to where they saw him the first time.
Yeah. I think I grew up in Odessa, Texas. My dad, my brother, my sister, my mom, all from Odessa, and all the family. Went to high school in Longview, Texas. And for those that may not have a clue where Longview, Texas is, that's a pretty significant jump from way west Texas to further east Texas. And the landscapes are two entirely different, pieces of scenery.
Yeah.
Longview, Texas, for those that may recognize some names from there, be like Chris Davis with the Baltimore Orioles, was a high school teammate of mine. Trent Williams, who's currently playing left tackle for the 49ers, high school teammate of mine. Malcolm Kelly, Oklahoma University wide receiver, another former teammate of mine. And Haynes King, more recently out of Georgia Tech. Haynes' dad was my offensive coordinator and is now the head coach and athletic director at Longview. So
that's cool.
Known Haynes his whole life, and there's been some really good talent that has come out of Longview, Texas.
So you're at Longview, Texas, and now how far away is that from like Dallas?
Probably 2 hours,
2 hours.
give or take.
That's not
Depending on
too
what
bad,
side of Dallas you're getting to. You know,
right?
if you're going Rowlett and Rockwall and East Dallas, you're probably an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then if you're going to Fort Worth, it's probably more like two and a half.
Gotcha. Do you have a professional team that you follow?
Boston Red Sox and baseball. Just for whatever reason, growing up, Roger Clemens was, a Texas guy, and we grew up watching him, so I kind
Yeah,
of stuck with that for life. I always kind of liked the Bulls growing up, and I don't think there was anybody who grew up in the late '80s, mid '90s that didn't like the Bulls. I think the Spurs were probably another one, just because the David Robinsons of the world, and
yeah,
he followed basketball. But man, I'd say there's the Cowboys are really like the only outside of the Red Sox. It's like Red Sox and Cowboys. Outside of that, I'm a sports fan. I just like watching good ball. Love watching NHL playoffs. I
cool.
don't know if there's a better Game 7 in playoffs outside of baseball, maybe, than the NHL playoffs. But just like watching ball.
Well, I'm so glad you said the Dallas Cowboys because that is my team. So I am based in Florida. I'm based in Florida. I got that from my father,
Yeah,
who was also based in Florida. He moved down here when he was very young. But back in the late '60s, early '70s, the Cowboys
yeah,
were that was all they had to watch on TV, and so they were always on. And my dad said he just loved the Cowboys. I grew up with the Super Bowl years.
yeah.
I know I'm dating myself here, but I grew up with those years. But it's good to hear somebody from Texas that goes, I like the Cowboys and not the instead of the Texans.
Yeah,
Or
well, listen, the crazy thing is you had your choice because you had Warren Moon and the Oilers at the time that were, they were good.
yeah,
But it's very hard to go against the grain when you had Emmett Smith, Michael Irvin, Moose Johnson, Nate Newton. I mean, Charles. Hey, you could go down the list
yeah,
of everybody that were on those championship teams for the Cowboys. And for me, people always ask like, where does '84 come from? Like, when did you start wearing '84? And it was kind of twofold. My brother wore '84 in high school, so it was
yeah.
kind of like the big brother mentor look up. But it was more, I'd say, oh, now I'm gonna blank.
Jay
Good
Novacek,
Lord. Yes, Jay Novacek.
Jay Novacek.
Probably had more to do with it than anything.
Yeah,
Just because he was one of those guys that I think was really subtle, but he's kind of transcended the tight end position at the time, where
yeah,
he's doing more than just blocking.
right. Jay Novacek. I was, and that was going to be my question to you was there anybody that you like looked up to or emulated? And now that you say that you had 84,
When I was younger, that was the guy. I think as I got a little bit older, you start looking at the Jeremy Shockeys of the world and the Heath Millers of the world, and guys who, when I was in high school, that's who you wanted to be.
yeah,
I think Shockey was a big one, just because that was the first time you really saw him and Antonio Gates were two guys that just Tony Gonzalez. They just did it different,
yeah,
and I think that about the time Heath Miller was coming out of Virginia, I started getting recruited by Virginia, and it was like, all right, I can start like my recruiting change and how I thought about what I wanted to be 5 years later, 6 years later, based on guys that a program had turned out, how they coached the tight end position, how they played the tight end position, and then the playbook.
Now, was tight end your only position you played in high school, or was it? I'm curious to see because a lot of people, you know what I'm gonna, you know how it is. People start off at like I was a center and I ended up being a linebacker. You're like, what? Like that's totally two different body styles and
Yeah,
whatever.
in Texas, I think it's a little bit different. It's probably one of the 4 or 5 states that your body style fits your position most of the time, right? Like you see guys that'll come out of like Mississippi and smaller states, and they may have played D line in high school, but they're playing linebacker in college, or vice versa, or something like that. I
Yeah,
think for me, I always was a D end and a quarterback going into high school.
yeah,
And when I got to Longview, John King is pretty much said, "Hey, listen, we run a triple option, and you're a passing type quarterback. That's not really kind of what we do." And granted, they had a sophomore at the time with Joel Armstrong, who was a really good quarterback and ended up going to Rice. He was going to be playing that position for 3 more years. Like there was
right.
no doubt. I mean, he was a 4.5 40. I don't claim to be the fastest person in the world. Like I kind of saw the writing on the wall. but I did see myself as being like a defensive end, and I wanted to kind of grow into that role.
Right.
And I got like the turn of freshman to sophomore year, and they let me play DN still in practice, but they were like, "We'll put you at tight end and kind of see how that fits you because we think we've got some things we can do with you." And that ended up being the fit. And now looking back on it, it's probably the best decision I could have made outside of them just saying, "Hey, we want you at D end." So I played a little bit of defensive end my last 5 games in high school, but it wasn't really enough to warrant the game film to go on to the next level at that position.
Speaking of that, you're from Texas. How in the world did you get to Florida? I mean, what was the recruiting process? And you just said like you mean you almost went to like you wanted to go to Virginia.
Well,
What was
I didn't. I appreciate. I mean, I had a lot of options. I had a lot of recruiting process.
okay?
Virginia was cool just because, like I said, Heath Miller is one of those guys you look at and you're like, okay, if I want to be a mobile tight end that gets the rock, like that's a
Yeah,
guy you can look at and go, okay, Virginia did that with him.
yeah,
Equally as impressive, you can look at a guy like Ben Troop, which played heavily into my recruiting process from a number of different directions, just based on what they did with the tight end.
yeah.
And I think that Larry Fedora and Dwayne Dixon had a huge, huge part in that. You know, Coach Dixon was one of those guys that I got along really well with. My parents got along really well with him, liked him, and I thought Larry Fedora did an unbelievable job as well as Coach Zook.
What was the other offers? Did you? I mean, who else was in the running?
So I took trips. LSU was up there pretty high. Miami to the point until Mark Stoops left Miami. You know, a great relationship with Mark Stoops, who was recruiting me as an assistant coach in Miami. And I bailed out of my recruiting trip a couple of weeks before it was supposed to happen
right.
because Mark took a job at Arizona when Mike got the job as the head coach. And so I adjusted that. Didn't necessarily have the best trip. You know, I think Arizona, a lot of those places I was high on because baseball, football was in the mix. And so every school that I took a trip to, it was kind of a dual scholarship opportunity in the way that it was recruited. Went to UCLA, had Arkansas pretty high on the list. I had a handful of others. Texas was up there big time for a while. And that was, I mean, those are really, I think it boiled down to those final, 5 or 6. But man, when I get to Florida, it was like, okay, I got off the plane in Florida and it looked like East Texas.
Yeah,
And it wasn't overwhelming. And it wasn't like, man, I'm so out of place. When I went to UCLA, I was like, I couldn't do this for 4 years.
yeah.
It's so big. It's just not me. So
Right. Well, I was going to say, you go from, from a one like one area and you go to another, and it's a lot of kids can't endure that culture shock. We had a young man that he's 30 something, 37 years old now. He got recruited by Buffalo, and
yeah,
and he's from here in Central Florida, and he told me, he said, yeah, I went up there and it was during the summertime and or spring, and he sees these on the campus. They got these like tunnels, and he's like, "What is that? Like, what's going on with that? What's up with that?" And they go, "Oh, that's for the snow."
yeah,
And
yeah,
he was
exactly.
like, "Check, please. Like, I'm
Yeah.
done. I don't want to be up here for that." So there's a lot of things that can deter people from coming to a like you just named pretty pristine colleges that anybody would want to play for, and it's just that if it doesn't the mold, you don't fit the mold, and it doesn't kind of gel for you. I guess it is a transition.
It's
It's
it's interesting too because, and I don't know how many guys do this and how many don't, but I used to keep a tack board in my room with my top 10. And I'd have, rows and columns, and I would have magnets that I would just throw in for, social life, right? Major, what kind of like what I wanted to do with life, like what I thought I wanted to do at the time. Because sports journalism was up there for me. I think that was the one thing I really wanted a good journalism program or some business related, major. And I kind of just gauged that out. And as it changed and flowed, football mattered, baseball mattered. What are their teams like? Are they consistently competitive? Are they really struggling? Do I got to worry about the coach leaving right in the
yeah,
first few years? I'm not saying that played everything because I wanted the fit of the town and the school to matter more than, who was going to be coaching there. And that came really to play important, role in staying at Florida, after Coach Zook moved on. But I think for me, it like I'll give you an example. Greg Madison ended up being, a coach at Florida who recruited me at Notre Dame when I was in high school. And you start getting mail from Notre Dame and some serious interest. Like that was something that I thought was the coolest thing ever. But I just, from a baseball perspective, I think Notre Dame eked me a little bit because, again, winter and snow and cold weather. I didn't want to really have to deal with that. And so you start looking at places like Florida and you're like, oh, there's sundresses in January. Okay, that might be a little bit more realistic. So,
yeah, exactly. So baseball, going back to baseball to high school, what position did you play? Did you pitch or outfield?
I pitched and played right field.
Gotcha.
So I think we had about 3 or 4 in our starting rotation. Myself and Chris Davis were kind of the 2 starters, and he had a guy named Sammy Hardwick that was just a nasty, crafty, short, small stature guy that could get the work done. And Chris and I almost closed every game each other started. So it was, he'd start in the field and I'd start on the mound, and then he'd come in and close my games out, and then I'd be in the field and come close his games out. So it was a cool little run in high school.
That's cool. What was could you throw the heat?
Oh, I had some heat. Yeah. I mean, I was 93 to 96. I mean, I got drafted. I think I really hurt myself signing a football scholarship. Looking back in hindsight, if I was to really try and maximize the draft process, I probably would have been more beneficial signing a baseball scholarship and reassuring teams or scouts that I wasn't going to just go football and take a signing bonus with me. But I mean, it was fun. I also look back on it and go, I probably made the right decision because being 25 and trying to go back to college if your baseball career doesn't pan out, a la Chris Winkie or any of those guys that did that. I don't know if that would have been for me. I think I always told my mom and dad I'd get a college degree. So I think that was probably more important in my process.
Well, it is important, and it's especially if you make a promise to your parents or whatever. And at that point, there was no NIL or all these things going on and transfer portal, so you didn't have that option. And when you were going, that's where you committed to go, and that's something you don't see a lot these days. But I was going to say, when having hindsight, thinking of the longevity of a baseball career.
Oh,
I mean, you could play 20 years in the league, and I mean, you really don't have to be. I mean, I don't want to say you're not a superstar, but you don't have to be.
I think the one thing with baseball guys is they if you can get to that level, and I always told myself if I could have 4 pitches in the bag, it was really all you need. If you could throw 5 or 6. Some guys have a slew of pitches, but I mean, if you can throw a fastball 90 plus mile an hour and offset it with a really good changeup and a curveball, you're on your way to really doing damage as long as if you can pitch, not just throw, because there's a lot of difference between being able to step on the mound and pump heat versus, spotting pitches and playing chess.
Well, and you got to think about this. You're only playing every other 5 games. So every other 5 days you actually play in a game.
Somebody missed telling Coach Kalmus that in high school. I think I was probably pitching every 3rd game. So it was.
Well, I meant in the pros. If you kind of understand the process of, okay, like say now, like I'm a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, so Skeens, you gotta look at the schedule and you go, okay, every 5, okay, maybe he should be here at this game, But Greg Maddox, there was a story about him how he everywhere they went on like road games or whatever, he would always take his golf clubs.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, what, dude, what are you doing? Like we got to be at the game. You're over there golfing. And he said, hey,
you made your choice.
Yeah, you made your choice. You wanted to hit. I wanted to pitch. And it's probably one of the best things. That was so cool. How he's like, no, that was your choice.
There's a sacrifice that comes along with wanting to hit home runs, man.
Absolutely. You want to be the big guy, hit all the home runs and get all the credit. I'm just a couple innings, get me 5-6 innings, pull me out or a closer or whatever you have you, and I'm good. I'm got 3-4 days off. I don't have to pitch the rest of that road trip.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. But when you realize the longevity of a sport, like my son right now, I coach him in 12U. This will be his last 12U year, and he's playing middle school football. He'll be in 7th grade, and they had him long snapping.
Oh,
and
yeah.
when you're in or middle school, and they go, "Hey, you could be the long snapper," they're like, "What?" I don't want to be the long snapper. But then you don't realize the career you could have. You can't get touched, and then you go down there and you can go whack somebody. Like you go down there and you're a gunner.
Yeah,
after that,
you really are, and the crazy thing is, I've played with some really good long snappers. I mean, Butch Raleigh and James Smith. James Smith was a long snapper at Florida that ended up being a captain on a national championship team. That was a former walk on, and I bet if you ask anybody who knows James or played with him, he's one of those guys that showed up and put work in. And you don't always see that out of long snapper. Usually they know what their specialty is, and they don't need to be fast. They don't need to be, hard working or strong. But, we had some dudes that were walk-ons. The funny thing is, in high school, I was a punter my freshman year. I started a couple games and then had to bail out of varsity because of district transfer rules. And so when I got to Longview, I played the first 2 games as a punter. And then had to go to JV because we had moved from Odessa to Longview, and the state told me, like, hey, you didn't notify the district. There was some semantics there. And the next year I was thinking, all right, I'm going to be a punter. I'm going to have a chance at possibly playing punter in college if I wanted to. And we didn't have a long snapper the next year. And so I ended up getting hung out for the next 3 years being a long snapper. And that was the most pressure-filled position, because I could go out and play tight end or any other position on the field and be really confident. Yeah. All eyes, you don't notice long snappers till they make one mistake. And, man, after that one mistake, you don't forget them. And so it's a lot of respect for the guys who go out and do that day in, day out.
It's funny you say that, like talking about a specific position, and when you have a lot of pressure. We had one of those kids that was our kicker, and that's all he wanted to be was the kicker. And so his mom was like, "Look, he's the kicker. Don't put him anywhere else." Well, I don't know what happened, but we needed him to go out and play wide receiver one time. And one of the coaches said, "Hey, I need you to go out there. You're just going to be a decoy. Just go out there and line up as a wide receiver." And he was like, no. He's like, "I'm the kicker." I don't go out and play wide receiver. I'm the kicker, like he's trying to sell it. And I just, sometimes you get that mentality where this is where I am. I don't want to be anything else. And it was just hilarious how he's like, "No, you don't even have to run around." He's like, "Yeah, just do whatever you want to do. Just run to their sideline and go out of bounds.
Do a cartwheel.
Yeah, fall down. Who cares?" And he was like, no. I don't know. He was scared to death. But kicking under pressure, that kid had ice water through his veins. He could kick with the game could be on the line, the season be on the line. It never messed with him. But have him line out at wide receiver as a X or wide receiver.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you what, you can't ever discount a clutch kicker. No. Especially when a game's on the line, and when you've been working out with guys the whole offseason, you kind of know what they're about.
Yeah. So when Zook, you mentioned Zook.
Yeah.
I love him as a coach. Obviously Urban did a tremendous job, but Zook was a heck of a recruiter.
Yeah.
And I just was curious about the recruiting process with him. Did he have to oversell Florida? I know you said when you got there, you realized, hey, this is just like home, but did he have to do anything to make you, kind of to put icing on the cake per se?
Not necessarily. I think the icing on the cake was during the recruiting trip. I think going into the process, I thought that Fedora and Dixon had done a really good job. With me in particular, right? I think they really hit on the points that I, that I was really close to what I wanted out of my experience, what I wanted out of the program, what I was looking for as a tight end. You know, I came out as kind of like a receiving tight end, did my share of blocking in high school. So I was good in open space. I was good on linebacker, safeties, on the ball tight end. Like I kind of did a lot in high school. But I think for me, Zook did a good job of like the dual sport thing wasn't an issue. Like that was the thing that one was like the first hurdle to me we'd have to jump through is like, okay, are you good with baseball, football? Great. All right. Awesome. Like, what does that look like? And how does that break down? You know, majors, like again, business and sports journalism were kind of two things that I was interested in coming out of high school. And Florida's got an amazing journalism program, got an amazing business school. So another, you know, check mark. And then the rest of it was just like, hey, can I see myself living here for 4 or 5 years and really fitting in and, you know, as a crew of guys. And that was kind of where the recruiting trip came into play.
Catfish Johnny's Restaurant, served at Lake Panasoffkee and surrounding areas since 1990. For the last 34 years, we have strived to serve great food at good prices and a friendly, casual atmosphere. If seafood isn't your thing, our wings and burgers are the best around. We have our daily specials too. We are open Wednesday through Saturday. Check us out on Facebook or Instagram for more information.
Webster Ace Hardware and Farm Supply are generous sponsors for today's podcast. They have been a family-owned business for 27 years. This helpful hardware store sells items such as archery, Ariat clothing and boots, Wrangler jeans, case knives, Hammond's candies, and live fishing. They also have a full selection of hardware, RV supply, propane, Ben Moore, Royal & Clark, and Kingston paints. You need a barn or fencing job done? Custom barn kits and roofing metal are provided at your local Ace Hardware store. What about a new grill for the yard? Traeger, Big Green Egg, Weber, and Blackstone are found here, along with all the accessories to go with them. Stock up your workshop with DeWalt, Milwaukee, or Craftsman tools. They got you covered. Remember to go to ace.com to shop their entire line to have items shipped directly to the store. Stitching Heifers is your one-stop shop for embroidered and printed hats, custom patch hats, and trending graphic tees that can be fully customized for you, your company, or your next big event. Whether you need a single design or a whole company's worth of branded gear, they've got you covered. Come see us at 110 Bushnell Plaza in Bushnell. Shop in-store or browse online anytime at thestitchingheifers.com.
Pat's Taps at Catfish Johnny's. Pat's Taps is Lake Panasoffkee's only craft beer tap room, offering 12 rotating craft beers on tap. We also offer bottled domestic beer, seltzers, ciders, and wine, as well as a variety of appetizers and pub food. Our family-friendly tap room is a great place to hang out and enjoy some one-of-a-kind craft beer. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or the Untapped app.
Whether your water is supplied by a public municipality or a private well, for residential or commercial use, Purified Water Services LLC has the solutions to provide you with simply clean water. We offer a complete line of professional water filtration equipment and accessories. Soft water makes a difference you can see and feel. Water heater and appliances last longer with less maintenance. Iron and H2S filters eliminate iron stains and offensive rotten egg odors and protects your water softener equipment from iron fouling. No matter what your problem is, Purified Water Services LLC has a solution. Contact Kenny Williams at 352-446-2709. If you're looking for real fun and adrenaline in Central Florida, head out to Bushnell Motorsports Park. It's a real outdoor go-karting track in Bushnell with high-speed rental karts that anyone can drive, no experience needed. You show up, they get you geared up, and you're racing. It's a great day to go out with friends, a great date, a great way to spend an afternoon. The high-speed karts are available to anyone 16 and older, and the junior karts are for anyone 10 and older. It's also one of the top spots in the area for corporate events and private parties, birthdays, bachelor parties, team building days, and company outings. They handle the whole thing. Track time, meeting room, trophies, the whole works. To learn more or to plan your race, visit BushnellMotorsportsPark.com. That's BushnellMotorsportsPark.com. If you want an energy drink that tastes like a reward, check out Big B Energy Drinks. 3 delicious flavors: strawberry smash, white cherry fizz, and summer melon. Super refreshing, super smooth. It hits the caffeine sweet spot, 80 milligrams per can, made for the people who want something more than soda, but don't need the 300 milligrams energy drink full of jitters. It has a smooth onset with no crash at the end. And the best part, no artificial colors. It's the kind of energy drink that you grab on the way to work, before the gym, or anytime you need to lock in and get something done. Take a sip, thoughtfully crafted, masterfully mixed. You can order online at bigbenergy.com. Use promo code GOBLAY10 to save 10% at checkout.
I think for me, getting on campus, seeing guys, getting to know some of the guys, and having an idea of like, okay, what are the personalities like? Like, how do they hang out? What do they go do for fun?
Yeah.
And I think once I was on a recruiting trip, it was a non-issue, because I went into Florida thinking, all right, if this recruiting trip, if Florida's everything that I've got in my mind right now, it's going to be, I think I'm good to shut it down and call it a day. And I think it was the first night on the recruiting trip after pretty much a full day that I just told Zook at the, dinner that night, hey, let me talk to you for a second. And I pulled my mom with him aside, and we sat down, and I'd already told my mom I'm going to go ahead and commit and end it. And he was stoked. And I think that I leveraged it a little bit by saying, if you can give me 84, I'm here. And knowing that Troop was already out the door, I just wanted to make sure that I locked in the number. And so for me, I was kind of like, had to throw that in before I committed. But, it was one of those things like, listen, you guarantee me 84, I'll commit right now. And so I got my icing on the cake, I guess, with that, because I kept the number for the next 5 years, and the rest is history. So,
was there a player that you met during that recruiting process, or that recruiting trip, that you go, that was going to be there the next year or the next couple of years?
Yeah.
That you adapted to, that was like, you're like, man, when I come back when I come back for the duration. Yeah. Was there someone who was like, that's how they were? They weren't just there doing the thing to 100%. Put all the theatrics. Who was that?
I honestly, man, I think there was a lot of them, but Todd McCullough was number one. I mean, it ended up being somebody who was almost like an older brother my whole college career, even though he got done in 2005. So I had 2 years with him. Definitely made the recruiting trip what it was. He was my host. Like, that was kind of big brother for my recruiting trip that ended up being still talk to him to this day, lifelong relationship. And then, a handful of guys. And I remember just thinking like Joe Cohen and Channing Crowder and the guys that were kind of like studs, and a lot of young guys too. I mean, when you look at Zook's recruiting classes, they had a lot of good players. There was a lot of talent. The tight end depth was pretty insane at the time, because you had, I think at the time you still had Billy Latsko and Channing and Brian Crum playing tight end, and you had David Kenner, you had Markel Thompson, so you had 4 tight ends. Then you had Daryl Carpenter and another walk-on, so you had 6, and then me and Dane Guthrie coming in as freshmen. So when you look at that 04 class coming in, you're walking into a room of 8 tight ends, which to me wasn't ideal. Like, I think that was probably the one, okay, what does that look like, that I wasn't 100%, okay, I love that. But I just kind of reset and said, you know what, if I can come to camp and show up and catch balls and make plays and just do what I'm asked, worst case, I'm redshirt, and best case, I'm getting some playing time.
Gotcha. Was there a moment during that camp, your first camp in the summer, where you were like, these guys are different? Like, you a lot of kids fail to remember that they're a great player, but when they get on a team with a bunch of great players, they it's kind of like a reality check, especially if they're older guys. They could be 5, like we were talking about Winky earlier. He could be 5-6 years older than that person. That's a grown man out there with boys, young men.
Listen, there's some grown men too.
When
I stepped, I think the funniest thing is I stepped on campus summer B. I believe I was about 205, right? And to give some perspective there, an SEC tight end at 6'7", 205, I don't think you've ever seen one. I came, and the reason being is I got drafted in baseball. I spent the whole first half of the summer trying to increase that offer from the Minnesota Twins to see what that signing bonus could max out at before making the decision. And I think I made a decision about a week and a half before I was supposed to show up on campus for Florida. And, it wasn't bad, but again, it wasn't life-changing money. It wasn't something where I was like, all right, that's what I was looking for. So when I got on campus, I stepped on the scale, and I think Ron Zook looked at me, like a deer in the headlights going, what in the hell have you been doing all summer? Like 205 ain't getting it done, bud. And so I think between that and the summer workouts with Leak and the receivers and the defensive guys, we'd run 7-on-7 sessions in the summer. And that was at least the one area that I felt like I could come in and shine a little bit before two-a-days, was be the guy who always shows up, gets the work done, but also be the guy who can, if you throw it, I'm catching it. Like, that was the kind of mentality I had going into it. Was I may be, a little bit light in the ass and a little bit lanky, but I'm gonna find a way to make plays, and I'm gonna always find a way to be the guy who knows what his job is. And I think for me that did a little bit of good for me going into two-a-days.
Well, I was about to say you're at a college that invented Gatorade, for crying out loud. So it's like, there's no way they could, there's no way we can't put weight on some guy, You go from a high schooler coming out and you go into, into the college field, and you become a science experiment,
That's 100%. That unlimited meal plan will do some wonders for you. I think at one point in college, my nutritionist intake was about 12,500 calories a day in order to gain weight. And, there's times where you're shedding water weight like crazy. I mean, you may weigh in at 240 before practice, and you'll walk off the field and weigh in at 230. And that's just the nature of how much water weight you're carrying, and, how many times you're going to have to eat during the day. But those 2,000 calorie mighty shakes come into play real quick.
Well, I was going to say, your first experience about that, to piggyback off that last question, what was there a point in time where you were like, oh my gosh, like at all, where you were like, did I make the right decision?
Man, Gator Mountains, that freshman summer, running stadiums and stuff. Not that it was like I questioned. I think everybody at some point in their college career, and it's usually your freshman year, you start questioning, like, man, this is completely different. Yeah. I will say I'm kind of blessed in the sense that John King and Longview High School run a completely different show for a lot of high schools. I mean, it set the tone on work ethic. It set the tone on, pushing through some barriers that when I got to college, it was like, hey, this is just another level. I gotta, amp it up a bit. Right. I think it helped, honestly, that I was rocking 84, because Troop leaving and this scrawny white guy from Texas coming in trying to prove a point. Like, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder that I was like, at least going to be the guy who went in and worked.
Yeah.
But you asked the question of, like, was there a moment in that first camp? I think in two-a-days, the first, because I ran a lot of pass plays in two-a-days that first year. Some backside blocking stuff. I was still like 215. I was not pushing a ton of weight around. And when you're across from like Ray McDonald and Joe Cohen, like, it's the last thing they're going to put you up against on a one-on-one block. Mm-hmm. But I had a moment where I had a peel back block. I think it was Javier Estepina in two-a-days, and I had a peel back block on a freshman linebacker at the end of a practice. And it was one of those where it was a clean hit. It was one you don't get too many looks at them. You may get 5 in a career. And I kind of decided not to back off of it and just go full-fledged and try and make a practice moment. And I mean, it was great. Everybody kind of hollering a hoopla. But I saw Channing Crowder telling me after the play, he's like, oh, that's what we're doing. Okay, we're headhunting. That's fine. We're head. And listen, when Channing tells you that, I'd only been around for a couple months at that point, but you hear Channing Crowder say that, all bets are off, brother, and you better find a way to keep your head on a swivel. And the next play, I was kind of caught standing around the end of a play, and I saw a blur out of the peripheral of my vision, and I just hit the deck, and he went right over the top of me. And I knew it was coming at some point, but I didn't think it was going to be ear hold where I wasn't seeing it.
Channing Crowder was a beast. Oh my God, he was awesome.
He's one of few, I can tell you that much.
Yeah. So I went up there This was in 2004. And you guys were playing Middle Tennessee State, and it was a makeup game because of the hurricane.
Yep.
And so I went and I had this guy. I used to work at Disney, and I was at Epcot, and this girl that I worked with at United Kingdom, I told her, I said, "You ever been to a football game?" She's thinking soccer, Yeah. And I said, No. You gotta come to a Florida Gator game. So I got tickets, and we went down there, and Crowder was not playing that game. He was suspended or whatever. He got in trouble or whatever. So, anyways, I knew after the game, I go down to down by the tunnel, over by that big ramp or whatever. And as I'm going down that ramp, here comes this moped, almost takes me out, and it was Crowder. I was like, dude, that was what is he doing? Like, he shouldn't be on the field. I didn't know he was suspended, but that was my Channing Crowder moment. That was.
Don't be surprised, because if he would have taken you out, he'd have let you know about it too.
I was gonna say we both almost got taken out by Channing.
Yeah, that's about right.
I just felt like there were some similarities to that. Like, I didn't hit the deck, but I got out of the way, and he just zoomed by, and I was like, "Whoa! You almost took out the little arm thing, little security guard gate." It was hilarious, but
it's funny because then I think of Brandon Silers of the world and Brandon Spikes of the world, right? You had Brandon Seiler come in and had a year with Channing Crowder, right? And if anything else, the mindset. Right.
Yeah.
Channing was one of those guys that had a very junior style mindset. Like it was not 0 to 100. It was always at 100. And no matter what, like, he was the one guy that as a freshman, I was like, all right, summer workouts, if I can stay on his heels or with him step for step, I'm going to get better. And he was the one guy that show up every single time you were trying to beat him. And if you could do that, you can make an impression on a coaching staff. That was just the way it was.
Oh, Seiler he's a beast too. I tell you, I've met him a few times, and he's a really, really nice guy. But I can imagine once he's on that field, he'll just rip your head off.
It's a switch. I mean, there's some guys in Seiler came in the 04 class, right? When you look at the 04 class, there's some really good players in it. I don't, it wasn't a top 5 recruiting class by any means, but it was definitely one that had a lot of guys that had valued input in those championship teams. When you look at it from all around, I mean, and even guys like, Kyle Jackson, Brandon Silers of the world. I mean, Tony Joiners. I mean, there were a lot of guys in that recruiting class that had a heavy involvement in winning some championships. And so I think some you may not know some household names, but Seiler set the tone, I think, for that next year when Urban came in 05. I think Brandon had a lot to do with what the bar was set at.
So having said that, we'll transition into that, because that's also something I'm curious to hear about is going into that next season, 05, when Zook's out, and here comes Urban Meyer from Utah. And, obviously had a lot of success out west, and came over to Florida, and it was like we're turning over the new leaf per se. And I was just curious about the transition between, because I know a lot of coaches, when they, especially nowadays, it happens way more now. And it's, I in my own opinion, I don't think it's fair to the kids, but you'll hear coaches, they don't ever say that, but they say, those aren't my kids. Those aren't I didn't recruit them. Those aren't my guys.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, and I'm not assuming that Urban did that, but I'm just curious of how that transition was and how everybody was able to adapt. The old crew.
I think that it was a mix, because I think what he did when he came in was he set the expectation in a way that didn't leave you an out. It was, here's what it's about now. Here's exactly how hard we're about to push you. It's going to be like nothing like you've ever done before. And it almost gets you in mode is like, it either scared the living crap out of you. If you weren't about that life, it probably scared you off.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were about the work, like, and if you were about that edgy mindset and like, oh man, let's go. Like, hell yeah, this is exactly what I'm here for. I think there were some guys that heard the pitch and was like, all right, I'm out of here. Like that.
Yeah.
I'm not about all that. And I think there were other guys who were like, you know what? I'm either at least gonna stick around for a year and figure it out and see what happens, or like, hell yeah, I'm full board. Let's go. And so that I will argue with you if you talk to anybody from the '05 team that played in '06 on the championship team or played through '08, that '05 spring summer was the hardest thing you ever had to do. And the crazy thing about it was nothing changed after that, but you got so used to it. That was the new norm, right? The bar had been set and raised, and you were honestly responsible for making sure that everybody after that lived up to that. And so for us, that was me going freshman spring. I was in baseball. I was doubling up. So I was doing football workouts in the morning with Mick Marotti and Matt Bayless, and then I was going school and then baseball and then just rinse and repeat daily until about spring football. And Urban pretty much said, hey, you're the starting tight end, right? You started last year. If you want to be my starting tight end, you're going to be at spring camp. And so I kind of had to make an unfortunate decision because I felt like I was getting back into the groove in baseball. I was dressing. I wasn't getting games yet, but I was trying to get some innings. And for me, that was probably the toughest call because if I had some cojones at 18, I probably would have said, well, listen, I'm just going to be confident myself that I'm going to earn that spot back, but I need to play baseball.
Yeah.
Kind of glad I didn't in hindsight, but at the same time, like that was the name of the game. We only had 3 tight ends in the room, and he wasn't wrong. I was leaving season as a starting tight end. Like I had to find a way to get back out to spring camp. And so, but yeah, it was treacherous workouts. I mean, for people who watch Swamp Kings, I don't think they even played 0.01% of the footage they probably had because it was something that changed it for sure.
I was going to say I had Chris Rainey on. He came over to the studio. He's a trip, man. I love him. He's a good guy as well.
Yeah,
He was telling us. I said, man, it was like y'all were going to Iraq, and he was like, yeah. He's like, literally, like we were. It was like we were preparing for like if we were going up against the Predator. I mean, it was like
yeah.
It's crazy how much you guys endured through those different times.
Yeah, the cool part is there's not a player on a team from '06 to '08 that didn't touch every stadium step in that stadium.
Yeah.
And that those were the workouts when you're doing finishers on the field at 1:30 a.m. on a midnight lift or 2 a.m. on a midnight lift, and you get done, and it's not you're not going to the club. It's close. Like
yeah.
But it was the appreciation after the fact because when you get done with those workouts, there's not anybody in the country that's outworking you. And I think that was really the mindset. That was the goal for us. We didn't want to walk into a season with false confidence.
Right.
We knew the expectation, right? And I think the best part about '05 was you had low expectation. There wasn't a lot of people that expected much in '05. And looking back on it now, we kind of kicked ourselves in the ass with that South Carolina game. Which we really had no business losing, but it set up nice. Had you won that, the way that everything fell later that night, we would have been in the SEC championship game in Urban's first season. And I'm not saying we'd have won it, but I think we'd had a good shot.
Yeah. I've been a Gator fan for as long as I can remember. And, I was there for the Spurrier days and the undefeated season with Danny. And they went to the Fiasco Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl against Nebraska. Yeah. And this is my take, and people might laugh, but this is the way I look at it. Not one year that we won a championship did we not lose a game.
Yeah.
The year that we went undefeated, we got killed.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take the loss. I mean, and now it's a little bit different with the playoff system, but back then in '96, we get beat by Florida State. At Florida State, Danny takes he just got killed, man. And they ended up they came and redeemed themselves in the Sugar Bowl. I think Steve had them on, firing on all cylinders. Then 06 and 08 was the same thing. You had the one loss deal. And I just think that, I don't know, to me, you have to have that adversity where you have to at least experience, I was there and I know you don't really want to talk about it, I hear you don't like to talk about it, but I got to talk about the LSU game in 06.
Yeah.
But I was there for that. I was in the south end zone, and brother, I'm telling you, if I would have had a better phone quality on my on my camera quality on my phone, I'm telling you, dude, when that ball gets tossed up and you're like in the air slow mo, and I know it had to be the same. It had to be 10 times worse for you.
But it's 2 hours long.
But dude, I'm telling you, man, it was like. But I'm telling you what, I just started screaming because I knew you weren't going to drop it. I had total faith in you, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah.
But I just started yelling, and then just the whole stadium erupted.
It exploded. It was actually one of the coolest parts about that play and it's hard to explain because some people ask like what it was like, and I'll have to explain it. And the way I usually explain it is, if you were there for the cock block in 06 against South Carolina.
Yep, Moss.
That where you flick the switch and the whole stadium just in unison erupts. It was very similar. And granted, if that jump pass is Tim putting it right on the numbers and me just waltzing in the back of the end zone, that play doesn't even get remembered for a long time. Nope. It was the whole discombobulation, the look that you got, me off balance trying to, recorrect and go one way when I'm running 1,000 miles an hour this way. And it was hectic. I joke all the time because when I watch it with my kids, if my daughter wants to watch it sometimes, and, I'll put some college stuff on and we watch highlights every once in a while. But it was Gary Danielson and Vern for me on that one going, how about the job by Tate Casey? That's only his second catch of the season. And it reminded me, and you know what I mean? It reminds me of how much we really didn't use the tight end at that point. And then when you look at where that went with Urban, over the years, I think in 05, he realized with Latsko and me, he'd have to do some unique things with the tight end and the fullback position. And then that kind of carried over to me and Aaron, and then carried over to Cornelius Ingram, and then it carried over to Aaron and I in 08. But it's just funny. And, when you talk about one loss, Auburn loss was hard to swallow in 06 to a really good defense. I don't discredit that defense. I don't think their offense was good enough to beat us. So we just didn't play that well. But Danny came in and talked to the team about a one loss, and what it could do for you, and, how it can reframe that mindset. And I think for us, it really did us good, right? I think we needed that loss. Had it been to a terrible team, it probably would have hurt us a lot more. Yeah. But, you had it against that. In 08, that was about as bad a loss as I had in college because, again, a good defense. Ole Miss had a great defense. We just played terrible that day.
Thanks for watching part 1 of this 2-part podcast. Check out full episodes on YouTube and Spotify.